All right. Welcome, everybody. We're going to start. Cool. How are you guys doing? Cool. Cool. Okay, so I'm sure you know. So this is the Mondays group supposedly. So I'll see you. So I'm glad you figured it out. There is one thing that we will start doing in this lecture. So if you go to Blackboard and if you look at remember the announcement post where I had your names, that table with your names and the day, I added a link to it. And so in that link, if you click on it, it will take you to a Google spreadsheet. And there you can basically mark your presence. So you will also see a table with your names, and then next to it are the columns of all the weeks we're going to have. And so like today is Friday of week 1. So just in that column, type in P for present, and that will mark your attendance basically. And since it's a Google spreadsheet that I own, I could see who did what when. So that's a good way just to have it.
And
So you,
Dr. Mukaram, I have a question.
yes, Ricardo.
Do we have to attend only on Fridays, or should we stream as well Wednesday's class? Like only
You
on.
can see, yeah. So you are Monday, so next week
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
going back to, but yeah, otherwise, yeah, and other days you can just stream and that's fine. Yeah, you
So
don't
we
have
can. We should stream. Okay, okay. We can.
you still can, yeah,
Okay, okay.
but you
Thank
don't
you.
have to.
And
Yeah,
one more question. Sorry.
sure.
For the thread for the claim evidence and warrant exercise.
Hmm.
Where where are the articles that you give to us?
Yeah, I'll add that later today. So
Oh,
you will
okay,
work on that
okay.
next. So yeah, I'll add it later.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, yo. All right. So let me see. So I hope. So yeah, I see like yeah, most people are here. So that's cool.
Um, Sorry, I just have a quick question too. With the attendance sheet, I'm trying to get on it and it won't let me. Um, it says access denied for some reason. I can try like on other servers later, but I'm just not sure.
Yeah, so you have to write. So you have to be logged in to Google using your San Diego's email.
Okay, I think I was, but I'll keep trying.
Yeah, probably you were, but maybe you originally signed in using your Gmail or another
Okay.
email, and so it's active like at the background.
Okay, sounds
Um,
good.
yeah, so you might try. You don't have to do it now, but you might try to restart Chrome or Safari or whatever browser you're using, and then come back and sign into Google with your San Diego's email. And
Thank
that
you.
should give you access. Yeah, cool. All right, so let's start. Sorry, should start from the beginning. Okay, yeah, that's the one. All right, so we're in week 2, and just to continue, sorry, lecture 2, and just to continue where I pick up from where I left on on Wednesday. So I started to talk about research in general. Why is it important in academia? Why is it important in the professional world? And today I'm going to go over some different formats that distinguish academic research from non-academic research and academic articles from non-academic articles. So, because when we say research, there are different things that we call research in our everyday language that won't fit the technical meaning of research. That's one. And also when you say article, you read articles in the newspapers or blogs, but in academic articles are different creatures. So we're gonna introduce them. And then what the structure of academic research is in order to understand its component and how would you go about reading academic articles. So just broadly speaking, there are two types of articles. There are what we could call research articles, and there are opinion articles. Research article is when you take a phenomenon and you try to analyze it into its basic components and explain the relationship between two or more than one variable. And that is to say, you use theory, you rely on data, and the aim is to try to explain relationship. That's what I said last time about theory. Your aim is to explain relationship, not only to point to relationship, and also predict changes. So in a sense that if you could uncover what causes a relationship or an effect from X to Y, you can then predict what happens when you change X. And let me give you a very quick example. So if you're conducting research on, let's say, the effect of mobile during class time on knowledge attention, right? Let's say you found, so your whole idea now, your whole purpose is to find if there's an effect or not, what the reality is. So you were going to measure that, right? Let's say we find a very objective way of measuring mobile use, and then we can match it to grades, let's say for academic performance, and we ran it for 2 semesters, 2 years, 3 years, etc. And then we found a positive relationship. Academic articles will point to that relationship, but also can explain why. So that in a sense, they will provide a theory about limited attention, which we would know based on what we already know from memory studies, from the fields of psychology and neuroscience. And then you apply it to media studies, right? So you will then create some, based on the empirical findings, you will write your articles. And so based on that, you can then have recommendations. But the most important part of your work is to demonstrate the empirical relationship and provide an explanation for them. Yeah. An opinion article, on the other hand, is as most like it's a subjective evaluation or a subjective take or statement about a phenomenon. So you might already convince yourself that using cell phones during class is bad, and then you will write articles, let's say, arguing for, let's say, banning them or making penalty for people using them or try to disable them when people are in meetings, etc. And so the structure of the article is that it's all about advancing what the argument is. You already have what we would call a value judgment. So you think X is bad or Y is good. And then you will just, after the fact, after you already establish your opinion, you will go and look for things that support your argument. So in a sense, it works backward from where research articles are. They start from the data to the position, whereas the opinion articles have a position, and then they will take whatever support from either academic studies, from anecdotes, you name it, and then so those are two things. Probably most of you have not read an academic article before, or not a lot of them, but they appear in what we would call academic journals. So these journals are basically subscription based. Some of them are open, or they will make some articles publicly available, but in most cases, you get them only through a university library system. So since you're all college student, you can access them. There's databases for them. So Google Scholar is the most famous one. You go there, and whatever topic or major you're thinking of, so communication, media, criminology, psychology, political science, etc., all of the major journals are indexed there. So you search any topic, and then you'll get a peer-reviewed article following the structure I just described. Whereas opinion articles, probably all of you have read or came across an opinion article before. So you find them in news websites, lifestyle blogs, any professional association publication. So an association for, let's say, cigar enthusiasts, baristas, truck owners, etc., right? Popular press. Those we still call articles, but they're different than academic articles. And so that's one thing. And then when you even talk about research, we have academic research and professional research. So with academic research is similar to what I mentioned last class. That is a theory-oriented, or it's driven by academic curiosity, and it usually, or it has even, followed some rigorous procedure. And those procedures are the ones that I'm going to teach for this during this class, right? And so there are specific standards for how to do data collection. There are specific standards for sampling. There are very specific standards for data analysis. And there are specific standards for even data presentation. You cannot present all data in academic articles, but we're going to talk about that when we get to ethics. Whereas professional research, so let's say you work for a major company. So you work for GameStop, let's say, and or Target, or you name it. And you want to know what people like, what people purchase. So you have your own company's data, or you look at the market's data from market research firms, and then you analyze just to look at the trends that can be utilized by your employer or your client. So that would still follow some elements of academic research. Right? So there is data collection. There are sometimes sampling and data analysis, but it doesn't follow, first of all, it doesn't need to have a theoretical framework. You don't need to explain why, for instance, people are moving from LA County to the outer counties, right? People are moving, and if you're a real estate investor, you just want to know how to utilize that. If you want to understand the social factors that lead them to moving out, that's academic research, right? So you see how those two things differ. So corporate market research can also be found. So corporate websites, so companies, let's say like PepsiCo or Netflix, or even like mostly the old companies. So Ford Motors, they have in-house research. Some of it is made public. Most of it are not published online, but many of them actually are. So you can find them out. There are business database websites like Statista, Standard & Poor's, NetAdvantage. Some of them, I believe, or all of them are available through the Copley Library. So you can find numbers about social media use among different demographics, or like demographic data for specific zip codes, or things like purchase behavior based on actual scanner data. So these things can be made available. Pew Research is another one. Has anyone heard of Pew Research before? In the news? Yeah. Jared, could you briefly explain or tell us what Pew Research does?
Is there just a big like really like reliable like research platform in which like a bunch of companies give them like their research and they publish it for them?
You're 70% right. So Pew Research actually does its own research. So they might get funding from private or public sources, but they do research on political opinions, religion. They are big on that. Social media, technology, all of that. And that's the results are all of the reports are made. They are publicly. They're free. You can just go to Pew Research, just Google Pew Research, or go to pew.org, and then there are tons of research about different topics. But it's not technically academic, because even if you go there, they don't work to advanced theories. They mostly describe social trends. That's what they do. So yeah, so as I mentioned, non-academic research, it does use primary research methods. So they collect data, they analyze data, they offer a quantitative summary and recommendation. The only thing, however, that doesn't make them academic is that they are not theory-oriented, as I mentioned, and they are not concerned with causations. So for PepsiCo, they want to know what sells and what does not, and won't look at the psychological motivations behind it unless it directly linked to the bottom line of the company. We can talk about that next week. And another difference is that they're not independent. So if you're studying the effects of, let's say, social media use or social media addiction, assuming there is an addiction, technically, the research will be conducted differently if you are an independent professor at University of San Diego versus if you work for Facebook, right? Because as an employee of Facebook, you're not fully independent, and your results have to serve the corporation. So even if you find things that are problematic, let's say, or that didn't look good for the company for any reason, most of that research will be kept in-house, so it won't be leaked, it won't be published if it's done within Facebook. Whereas academic articles, assuming they are also not getting corporate funding, supposedly they are independent. So wherever the truth or the data lead them would be the academic truth. So yeah, so here's an example of like an academic article versus an academic article. And the topic is minimum wage, since there is a debate about minimum wage increase. So we see it on the left. So this is an academic article. They all look like this. You have a title, name of the author, and abstract. So the pass-through of minimum wages into U.S. retail prices, evidence from supermarket scanner data. So we see they used real data. You guys know what scanner data is? So when you go to the supermarket and then you get your thing through the scanner, so everything is then saved or recorded in that scanner machine. So if you want to know what people purchase, you can look up that data. They get digitized, especially now, they get digitized. So you can run a study either on one supermarket location, one neighborhood, one city, one state, right? So you can see how changes in consumption, and not hypothetically, but actual purchase data. And so here, just by reading the abstract, we use high scanner data and leverage a large number of state-level increases in minimum wage between 01 and 12. We found that a 10% minimum wage hike translated into 0.36% increase in the prices of grocery products. So based off real scanner data, they found that association, right? So 10% increase in minimum wage, you get only 0.36% in. On the right side, this is a recent article published on the Atlantic, the counterintuitive workings of the minimum wage. And so you can see from the title right here that there was a subtitle: the benefits of a $15 minimum would greatly outweigh the cost. So you see the difference between, say, you have a position at the beginning versus just try to explore, right? So that's one why we would consider that an opinion article. But if you might take a look, so if you you could click or copy the look up this article. Uh, why won't we consider it a research article? What does it make it a research article if the person right here actually stating the same opinion that these respected researchers have, then why her article is not technically an academic research?
It has maybe more opinion to it. Like it's not just pure facts and data. It's like they're trying to convince you of an idea or persuade you, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a piece aimed at persuading you, right? Uh, so that's one thing. What else? So you can look up the link if you want. Um, why there's also an important part that makes that article not technically research. What is it?
She's writing for the Atlantic, so it might not be most credible news source.
Yeah, it's
Or it
not
is a news source.
Yeah, so this is actually what I'm one of the points that I'm making, right? So academic articles, this is what I want to say, rely on primary data, right? And what Jed was saying, academic articles are peer reviewed. So here, what I mean by, have you heard that phrase before, peer reviewed? Can someone tell us what peer reviewed is?
I'm guessing that, well, it's someone else reviewed it and told, I don't know, peer reviewed it. I think it speaks for itself. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah. But although it's technically done more than, so peer reviewed in the way it's being done, we call it double blind peer review. That is to say, when I submit an article to an academic journal, it will be assigned to 2 or 3 reviewers who would only get the articles without any hint of who the author is. So no name, no email attached. They even tell us to check the background information of the Word doc or the PDF to make sure there's nothing that can be traced back to the author. And I, as an author, won't know who the reviewers are. So it's fully, it's supposedly it should be more, then it would be more objective. So you, as a peer, you won't publish or support the articles that your friend write, or vice versa. And so yeah, so that's how we do it. If you write in the Atlantic, so it's not that they are not credible, but they're not rigorous as we do. And it's not that opinion articles are bad. People are entitled to have opinions, but we won't consider that just the facts. Right? Even if it relied on facts, so academic articles will run its own data and data analysis, whereas non-academic articles, so that opinion piece, as a matter of fact, relied on some academic articles. So it relied on research of others to advance the argument. But always keep in mind when you're reading an opinion article that the author selected which studies to include or to cite to support their argument. And there could be, if someone else does that secondary research, you can find other articles that support another point of view, right? So it's not that opinion articles are not reliable in a sense, but they're not reliable to the same standards we hold academic articles to be. Okay, so I think I already explained this part. So yeah, so and I also mentioned that, so I just don't want to leave you with the impression that arguments or opinion articles are bad. They are still valid ways of learning things. So I'm sure some of you, if you are interested in learning something about like the minimum wage, at this level, it's really hard to read academic articles written by economists, even for someone with a PhD, like, because sometimes they get too detailed or too technical that you won't get a straight answer for what you're looking for. Some good academic, non-academic articles, sorry, or opinion articles would rely or summarize the findings by academic research in a way that's, even if it has, even if it's opinionated, it's still somewhat objective, or at least trying to show you both sides and then argue for the side they prefer. So they could lead you somewhere, right? But that doesn't mean the only thing we need to rely on are academic articles. That's not true. There are other things because we have limited capacity and we have limited time. There are other ways of explore, like taking position on things other than academic research. But when you're doing research, you should follow the right procedures. That's the point. Then, so that's as far as research. But even in academic articles, we do have non-research academic articles. We call them critical essays. Today, I'm going to talk about research, academic research articles, and next week we're going to talk about critical essays. And so all academic articles, if you read them, follow academic research articles. I mean, follow this structure. So we have something called the abstract, then have an introduction, a literature review, a method section. Then we have results or findings, discussion, which is similar to, which would include summary, conclusions, limitations, implications, and then references. Not all articles will have the same labels. So it would have the same components, but they might label them differently. So some journals, for instance, won't have a subheading for introduction. So just the second paragraph will be presumed to be the introduction, and then you follow from that. Um, they go right on to the literature review without labeling it. So they might have different labels, but that's the basic structure that all academic research articles follow. Give you more details. So the abstract is a short paragraph summarizing the study's purpose, method, and main research question and findings. So we were a group of research. So we wanted to study blah, 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 let's say effects of mobile use. We use that method, let's say, of survey data. We had that number of participants, and what we found is, and then they just list in one or two sentences what they found, and that will make up the abstract. Introduction, similar when you write an introduction, even for a class paper, you try to grab the attention of the reader, right? So you will mention why the research is important, how is it relevant, what made you think about this topic, why people should be concerned about this topic, and how you research. And then in another, so this introduction usually takes 1 to 3 paragraphs max. And then lastly, you will explain how you're going about tackling the issue you're studying. And then you would have a literature review or theoretical framework. And it is what it says it does. That is to say, it's a review of the previous research written on that topic, right? So you start summarizing. So that paper about the minimum wage effects on prices. The authors have to summarize not every single article, but the most important articles in that topic. So all the academic studies done on the relationship between minimum wage increases and price increases have to be included. And so let's say Fernando and Grant found that blah, blah, blah. So when they studied, I don't know, maybe minimum wages in state of Washington, they found such and such. Miley and Josie found that in a different study, and so on and so forth, right? While doing that, you show what has been done and then what has yet to be done. So what's the new piece then that your research is trying to address? So in that article, for instance, that used scanner data, they could say that most research before have used only a subsample. So they looked into like few stores or a few neighborhoods, or they looked at the country level, but they haven't looked at real scanner data of a full geographic location and for a longer period of time, right? So your speech is, although it is similar to other studies, but it also has an added value, right? So you show the similarity and then you show the uniqueness. That's what literature review does, basically. Um, and also, although we next week I'm going to talk about literature review, but literature review has to basically lay the ground for the data, because based on the literature, we want to understand why you arrived at your hypothesis and how you collected that data to test your hypothesis, right? Um, and so following that, you explain the methods. So did you collect survey data, interview data, experimental data, real world data, etc.? The finding, which is just straight up data analysis. Then you have the discussion. And in the discussion section, it's mostly where the authors get somewhat subjective, I wouldn't say, but or another way, try to make sense of the findings they had by arguing what they mean uh, in a theoretical sense and in a social sense, right? Uh, for that, you would argue what the implication of the research, let's say for policy making, for lifestyle choices, for health choices, for whatever topic you are addressing. So mostly when the authors argue for something, it will happen at the discussion section, but never in the findings and never in the literature review, because literature review have to stick to previous empirical research and theory. Whereas in the discussion, you could argue for what that research findings you have imply for society or for profession. And then references are just works cited, which I believe you're all familiar with. So yeah, I've talked a lot. So let's have an activity. So I forgot to upload the slides to Blackboard. But if you could, so I'll ask you to find this article. So this is an academic research article, and it's called "A Relational Uncertainty and Message Processing in Marriage." So if you just could Google that, and while I'll upload the slides to Blackboard, so go to that article, and it's open, and just go over the abstract and the introduction. You don't have to read the articles, and try to answer these 4 questions. I'll give you like 5, 7, 10-ish minutes. And then, yeah, I think, yeah, it should not take long to answer those 4. And so like, what aspect did the abstract summarize? Did the author explain why the topic of uncertainty measures is relevant to research? And which specific aspect the author's claim was not researched before? And what is the research goal? So these questions are addressed explicitly in the article, but they just want you to familiarize yourself with the language. So, yes. So, let me send it to you. And thank you, Jay, for the link, by the way.
Professor, I had a quick question for you.
Sure.
So on that website, it looks like it's just like showing the abstract. It's not showing anything else. And I think it says that you have to like log in or purchase a subscription to view the full article.
Maybe give it a. Could you try this link now?
Yeah, so the acknowledgements in the notes, that's part of the article, right? I might be reading this wrong, but if this is the full article, then I have it, then I apologize. I just got confused because it just said abstract and then you told us to read the abstract and it said just like notes that they had.
Yeah. Did you see the new link I've just sent?
Let me see.
Can you try this one?
Oh, okay, got it. All right, thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, and it opens, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, guys. Do you need more time? You don't have actually to find all the answers, but at least would you able to figure out some of the answers? Yeah. Okay, so let's give it a try. So yeah, so what aspect did the abstract summarize? So what did the abstract say? What things it summarized?
It gave a summary of the theory that they were trying to prove, like their claim, and then they went into a little bit of the evidence and the experiment that they conducted, and then they just wrote a brief sentence about their conclusions and explaining how their evidence tied to their theory.
Yeah, cool. And how long was the abstract? How many
It
sentences?
was just a short paragraph. It was
Yeah,
about 5 sentences.
yeah. So yeah, it's also it's like that, 5 sentences, just getting to the theory, method, findings. So in the introduction, so did the author explain why the topic of uncertainty in marriage is relevant to research? Why is it worth researching? Was that addressed in the introduction in any fashion? Let me ask it another way. Did the authors explain why they're doing this research? Why is it important? Why should the reader care? Anything like that? What was the
I
rationale?
didn't say anything about that in the abstract.
I mean in the introduction.
Oh,
Sorry. So I think they were basically talking about if couples go through like a surprise or a sudden event, if they pass these like series of tests that they laid out or the experiment that they laid out, they respond to those like surprising events better. Yeah.
So you're trying to say studying this topic would improve a marriage relationship? Is that what the authors were hinting?
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah. So it has some real life value. And so which specific aspect the author claim was not researched before? So yes, Fernando, you want to say something?
Yeah, they said that they weren't aware of any work that was that investigated uncertainty as a predictor of communication in marriage. So they haven't seen any other work like that has investigated how communication in marriage is like how it's affected and how it can be negatively affected or positively affected.
By uncertainty, yes. So there are other research on uncertainty in communication, but not in marriage. That's and finally, what's the research goal? Dimension. What's the goal of the research? What they're trying to achieve by the experiment or study they ran?
They said the goal is to connect uncertainty and communication between partners, especially those in a marriage.
To achieve what? What's the
To better
what the final end of that? So sorry.
I guess they say like they retained self, partner, and relationship uncertainty as separate variables.
Yeah, okay. So they mentioned like it explicitly what yeah. So they mentioned then they explain, right. So you're right. So it's between relation and certain message between spouses, but then that would mean it's useful for you just mentioned one. So if it's a provides initiative for the uncertainty, it's germane to communication beyond the early juncture for relationship progression, right? So they're saying how uncertainty emerge predicts then the progress of relationship. So that's why the top one of the goals, like this, the finding of this topic will, of this research will help in that aspect of marriage relationship. So yeah, that's it. So don't worry, like this was just a very introduction. I just wanted you to see how academic articles look like. We would read multiple academic articles throughout the semester. So I want you one by one, step by step, familiarize you with the language structure. They are not intuitive in any sense. They don't read like regular articles. So that's why from week one, I wanted just to introduce it, but you were not expected to actually figure out everything. So yeah, so that's it. So next week I'm going to talk about different type. I'm just going to briefly mention what critical studies are. I don't teach critical studies myself. They will not be part of this class. And then talk more about theory. So next week we'll talk about theory and we'll talk about literature review. So yeah, if you don't have any questions, you're free to go. And I wish you a great weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Professor, I just need to make sure one thing.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I look at the Blackboard and I'm assigned for the Wednesday class. So does that mean I don't have to show up for Mondays anymore, or?
Yeah. So which one do you prefer actually?
Yeah, I'm assigned with the Wednesday class, and I do prefer Wednesday. So I was just trying to double check that if so I only have to come every Wednesdays and five Friday classes during the semester. Is that the requirement?
Correct.
So I don't have to show for Monday, but during the Mondays, are you gonna go over the contents that are you gonna go over the separate contents for Mondays and Tuesdays that I'm gonna have to see the video later to make sure I cover all of those?
Yeah, it's going to be different content, right?
Okay, thank you. So ideally I would need to either attend or either make up with the recorded video to cover the Monday's material.
Right. So you can watch recorded video, and this lecture is live streamed on YouTube.
Mhm.
So if you only also want to do it live, you can go to YouTube and
All right,
without
perfect.
needing
Thank
to
you.
worry about Zoom and cameras and all of that. So you could, I don't know, while working out or doing something else, you could just listen to it.
All right, thank you, Professor. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, you too.
Professor, I have a quick question.
Sure, Fernand.
Is it still possible to show up to both lectures, or would you rather me only show up to one?
No, this is your class, Fernando. You could show up to But the thing is, it's I'm taking some burden off you, so I won't require you to attend. Right?
Okay.
You can. So yeah.
And if I do attend, do I still write in my not my participation, my
Attendance sheet.
attendance? Yeah. If I show up on Monday, even though Monday's not my day, or
Yeah, sure. Although people, I won't deduct points for that. But yeah, if you want to, yeah, that's fine with me.
okay, perfect. Have a nice day.
Hello, Dr. Mukaram. I have one more quick question.